My name is Olav Ernstzen, and I think I'm talking about coping with sight loss. Let me start off by saying with the honest baseline platform that vision impairment sucks. Blindness sort of, oh, that's a comment for you, sucks in that sort of sucky way that really, really sucks. But I think the important thing is not to think, whatever form of pemphigoid you've got, that it makes you different. You're the same. What changes is that you've got to do the same things in a different way. And for me, that's been a radical change. But what I want to do after a couple of opening points is just explain how I've coped, how I've changed, how I've evolved. And I'll start off by saying, I don't come to Moorfields for my eyes. I come here because sorting out my eyes is the pathway to me doing what I want, to leading a normal life. I come here once, twice a year to the clinic, half an hour in front of a doctor, fine. I've got the rest of my life to live, and that's what this is about. So it is part of my pathway to ordinary living, and I think that's always what you have to have in mind, whatever treatment you're getting. It is not an end in itself. And John was saying about some of the stuff I want to say, well, let me start off by picking up on a theme that's been running about diagnosis, not on pemphigoids, but one friend of mine down in Kent was seeing her doctor complaining of various things, and like so many people here, being sent away, until some months later, a friend at work said, you're in such pain, you need to go and see your GP. And she did. And luckily, the GP had had a friend of hers diagnosed with the same problem. And my friend had tertiary stage pancreatic cancer. She's got about a 3% chance of surviving to 5 years and 1% to, I think, 10 years. And that was, just bad diagnosis. Another friend who'd just given birth saw the doctor and complained about a problem, I think, in turning nipples. Doctor said no problem. Health visitor said no problem. It just so happened she had to have a Bupa well woman check, I think on the Monday, and by the Friday she was in hospital having a mastectomy. So don't think that they're picking on you just because it's pemphigoids. Trust me, GPs can be equal opportunity. You need sometimes, I think, as I can't remember who it was, says, to fight for your own corner. Now, one of the things, again, I was speaking to John about is, and picking up on what I was saying earlier, this is part of a pathway. If I was talking to you about coping with an eye problem, it's very simple. Use the drops, take the tablets, see your consultant, and that's it, job done. But it's not about that. It's coping with sight loss. And sight is about doing things. So one of the first things, and I think we might pick it up later, I don't know, is that it's no good just having a clinic, however excellent it is, at whichever hospital it is on its own. It is part of a pathway. And so at some point, somebody gets referred in, I get referred in, but there are other support services I need. So if somebody gets to a point in sight loss where they need certification as sight impaired or severely sight impaired, there are other services. There is the low vision clinic here and elsewhere to provide equipment, but there's also the local sensory team, which helps train, give confidence, and get back to that point of dealing with sight loss, that's to say everyday living, rather than dealing with eyes, which is tablets, eye drops and ointments. And the distinction is important, and I think all clinics, all disciplines need to see themselves as part of that pathway. The pathway is around me. They need to move me forward through it. They need to support my ambition. The second thing, and maybe slightly more minor, is it's wonderful in Moorfields. Now they've got the new coffee downstairs and the revamped shop and the information centre. It's great, but it's not my chosen destination for a day out. I don't want to waste my time here. And I come into a clinic and somebody sits in front of me. They, of course, are doing their job by going through my file. I've got 5 volumes. I'm like, the complete works of William Shakespeare down there. And that takes time. Now, I know they have the electronic system in Croydon, but it just seems to me every clinic for every file should have a single-page summary of my name, from, in my case, what assistance I need, 10, 20-word summary of diagnosis, a list of what medication I've got, what treatment I've had, and what's going on next. And somebody there in the clinic can whip through that, save 12 minutes of my 15-minute slot or whatever it is, give me a better treatment, a quicker treatment, and I'm out, thank you very much, and see more people during the day. It is not difficult, it is simple. So that's one of my little minor gripes. I now move on with. And so with sight loss, it did change things, of course it did. I had to unlearn a lot of what I knew how to do because I couldn't do it that way anymore, and learn a new way of doing it. I've achieved a lot, and I think for everybody else, you too, whatever your pemphigoid, will suddenly find skills you never knew you had. I think the secret is to recognise it and go, oh, that's interesting, and grab the opportunity. When I started, I don't know why it was with sight loss, it suddenly got me into things, and I suddenly found myself on a couple of committees with the Bar Council. They were interesting. I sort of liked it. It wasn't very good training. And I think the next significant step was in 1999. I've forgotten the name of the person who was in charge of low vision then, but she called me downstairs and said, almost sort of a tap on the shoulder, a bit of recruitment, did I want to join the Camden and Islington Low Vision Services Group, which was when there was a single health authority. I'd be most welcome to the next meeting. And I thought, oh God, is it a disguise or what? A bit worrying it was in the Temperance Hospital, but I thought, oh, see what happens. Anyway, and it was a lovely committee. It had Moorfields, the Royal Free, consultants from both, researchers from City University, both lots of social services, the RNIB. It was a good committee. The trick that they didn't tell me, the little ambush, was when I arrived, they said, oh yes, I forgot to mention, do you mind chairing it? And the reality is, I'm picking it, all lovely organisations, all looking at each other, and I think a sort of unspoken institutional mistrust. Are they going to take over the world? If they chair it, is it all going to go their way? So all of a sudden, I found myself doing a job I'd not done before, didn't really know how to do, and of which I only had bad examples. But it was a goodwill place, and everybody wanted it to work, and we carried on doing fairly good stuff. Even though I think at that stage my learning curve was about that shape, fairly flat and without a curve at either end. But we managed, and then Camden and Islington went off and became what were then the PCTs. At the same time, within my own borough, I'd joined a group called Horizon, which met monthly visually impaired people. Not overexciting, but hey, £2.50, all the wine you can drink and all the food you want. What's to say no? So I went for that. And then I also got into the Mobility Forum, which wasn't too great, but gave me a chance to speak to people like the providers of TaxiCard, Dial-A-Ride, the local bus company, and just to explain to them where they were failing. And that was interesting. And then this opportunity arose when TfL advertised for people to join an advisory group. I looked very, very carefully, and as they were paying real money, I thought, have a go. The truth was, which I didn't tell them, was all I was using was TaxiCard and Dial-A-Ride, and this sort of, big red thing on wheels or thing that runs in the tube was strange to me. Well, they won't ask, no need to tell, go for it. And I got in, and that's been great fun. I've had to go again through, I think, 2 recruitment processes, but I'm still there. For some reason, they're still paying me money. And I think the secret is I didn't know I could do it until I had to go to find out if I could. And I've had to learn as I'm going along. And I was faced with an advert for something I had never done before. I'd never been disabled before. I'd never been involved in an advisory committee before. I'd never done contract work for TfL before. But I just thought, the worst that'll happen is I'm no worse off than I am if I don't apply. So give it a go. And I'm still learning a lot from that process. And for them, I now chair the Central London Sub-Regional Mobility Forum. It's about 5 boroughs. We get together twice a year and try and improve things. Arising out of that, because never give up if you're on a roll, Department for Transport had an advert. They were recruiting members for the Disabled Persons Transport Advisory Committee. And for the first time, they were paying. You might sense a theme coming through here. And so I thought, go for it. Why not? You know, I don't really use a lot of rail, but I've been known to go abroad in an aircraft. So let's see what happens. And I did. I sort of blagged my way through an interview and I got in. And again, I've gone through recruitment and, you know, I've survived. I'm still there. I'm now, I mean, it's a learning curve again. I now know more about vertical shock on rail lines at level crossings, flange gap fillers, and then you care to possibly imagine. And, you know, all you need to do is just sit there with a straight face and sound as if you know what you're talking about. I was on a working group with the Rail Safety Standards Board looking at the accessibility of level crossings for disabled pedestrians. You know, sort of things that get people really excited at dinner parties. And wonderful experts there. And all I had to do, apart from just querying what they were saying, was lean in every so often and say, it's only about getting from one side of the track to the other. And I think sometimes just that simple voice of common sense is important. But again, you know, it's not something I knew I could do until I did it. At the moment, one of the projects I'm working on is rewriting a little esoteric document for the rail industry, which is about obligations on them towards disabled people, and with a group which consists of somebody from Transport Focus and the Office of the Rail and Road Regulator, just trying to make it a very simple document that any disabled person travelling by rail will understand. And so it's that simplification. And I think, again, one of the themes in the questions was just making it accessible to everybody, empowering the people who are out there using the service so they know what to expect and how to make sure they can get it. So that's one of the things I'm working on. It ties in, just briefly, with what actually started when I had a really appalling time with the hospital transport from Whittington Community Health, Whittington Hospital Transport, and so I complained. And in their anodyne, we're sorry you didn't enjoy the service, we'll do better letter, they also said, and if you wish, you can speak to the deputy director. I thought, you know what, I will. And I fixed up a meeting and I sort of got him to agree that they'd go along with some sort of expectations document and got them to agree over a cup of tea, which they paid for, that I could write it, which I did. And unknown to them, for reasons I'll come on to, I was able to invoke the help of the clinical commissioning group to make sure it really worked, and local social services. So that was my start there, and now I'm using that model elsewhere. Subsequently, sort of slipping back to where I was before, the Thomas Pocklington Trust, an endowed charity looking at visual impairment, and Thomas Pocklington himself is buried up in Highgate Cemetery, are trying to come into the borough. So they've got me now on an advisory group, trying to set up a sector organisation and setting up a local borough organisation. It doesn't pay, but, you know, it's interesting. And I think they want me to chair that, but I'm looking to see how it works out before deciding if I'm that interested or not. But I think they keep offering me inducements like tea and cake, so I attend the meetings. So that's sort of what I'm doing there. Globally, and I'm going to try and sort of get back to more fields in a moment, I was interviewed a short while ago, a couple of weeks ago, by somebody who does a blog for Islington. Is it called Islington Lives or something? I can't remember. And in there, I was explaining my early career progress, because originally I started off, I was at Strawberry Hill. I was supposed to study psychology and English. When I got there, English was full and they weren't doing psychology. So I switched, as you do, and went for the similar combination of film, TV, drama, but I also picked up sociology, so at least I did an ology, which I think pleased my parents at the time. And I then went and worked in the professional theatre for some years, West End, did a summer season, which was great, weekly rep in Canterbury. I think my mother preferred to say I was in prison. And then there came a point where I thought, what am I doing? You know, I'd reached a point where I was supposed to be getting a tour together, but I was in fact working with the ticket agency owned by the guy who'd put up the money. I thought, no, go back to what you really wanted to do. So I just decided, it was one May, that I was just going to apply to join the bar. I was going to become a barrister. I'd always wanted to. So I just went for it. I applied to one college, one inn, and just threw myself at it. And as I said to the person doing the blog, I had to know, I would rather risk failure than spend the rest of my life wondering if I could do it. And I think that is maybe something important moving forward. Coping with any form of pemphigoid is, you know, be curious about your own ability. I am. And move forward. What's the worst that'll happen? And every day at home, I've got to be very, very tidy. If I put something down and I can't find it, I just need to get used to the fact it's somewhere, don't bother, it'll turn up. I can't get overstressed about it. It's sort of Zen and the art of sight loss. There's some things, I mean, I enjoy cooking. I like sharp knives, Sabatia's razor sharp. I only sharpen them when there's somebody around because I'm not sure on my own I could find a finger on the floor and sellotape it back on. So I need to be careful about things like that. I sometimes terrify the neighbours. If I'm in a bad mood, I just get out, make creme brulee with a blow lamp in the window and just listen to the sound of them fainting. But that's a naughty thing to do. But again, you know, you need to know what you can do and not worry. I was making tea for myself the other day and poured a kettle full of boiling water on my hand. You know, fine. I ran it under the cold tap, no blisters. You know, had there been blisters, I would have had to cope. You need to take the risks. You need to move forward. You need to be on the front foot. The other thing, of course, I do is go to the gym. It's fun. I know roughly where things are. I wander around. People know me. I need to get onto the equipment and sit on it. If there's somebody sitting on it, they have a choice. They say something or get me on their lap. Or once or twice, it's mainly men who are quiet. And I do find my hand resting on the inner thigh does tend to awaken their voices fairly quickly. So they have learned to respond to me wandering towards them. But, you know, the way home, it's a challenge. It's a 20-minute walk. And I get used to the fact that on the odd occasion, I may finish up in somebody's front garden, having a close inspection on the windows. On one occasion, walking down the road, I sort of stopped and thought, it is not usual in the pavement to have a car on each side of you moving in opposite directions. But again, you know, you've just got to be calm about it. One of the things I miss now is, apart from driving, I used to enjoy flying. And if you're up there and you sort of think, I think as the phrase goes, implying temporarily unsure of my position, you can't stop in a lay-by to go and sort of ask somebody. You've just got to sort yourself out very slowly and very calmly. And the saying goes, you know, there are old pilots, there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots. And when you find yourself with cars on each side of you, you know, don't panic about the cars. Just think, okay, what's my plan to get back to the pavement? And just do it. But anyway, I was being interviewed for the blog because of my association with Health Watch Islington. There are some leaflets outside, some feedback forms and something else. I don't know what it is. Do take one. Nobody leaves until they're all gone. But Health Watch, for those who don't know, it's statutory. I think it came in under the 2007, I think it's Health and Something Else Act. Don't ask me, I'm only a lawyer. And I've been involved ever since. We are statutory. We get funding from central government through the local authority. We collect user views with the aim of improving local health and social care services. We have certain statutory powers. We can we can inspect various premises where services are delivered, provided they're publicly funded, write recommendations, and we're entitled to a response within 20 days. Otherwise, we can refer it to the Health Scrutiny Committee for them to deal with. And a couple of weeks ago, in my capacity as chair, which I have been since I think now might be 2009 of the local health watch. I, together with my chief executive, were at the local clinical commissioning group AGM. CCG AGM is so much nicer, but then again, I just think acronyms are going to be a very interesting pub quiz one Christmas. But we were at this, and we were approached by somebody whose name I don't know, can't remember for the life of me, from Moorfields, and invited to come and do an enter and view visit here. So all I can say is, John, I'll be back.
Thanks very much, Olav.